The case I got involved in was supposed to be just another closed archive, but the deeper I dug, the clearer it became. Someone was turning people into weapons, and they did it so quietly that no one heard. My name is Artyom Serov. I am an investigator for especially serious cases. I have 12 years behind me, dozens of corpses, and only two cases that made my hands shake. This is the third. It all started in March, another murder in a one-room apartment on the outskirts of Moscow. At the scene was a young guy of about 20, covered in blood. In the kitchen was the body of a woman, cut up so badly that the court didn't even start writing the report right away. According to the documents, it was the mother. According to the neighbors, it was an ideal family. A quiet guy, an excellent student. No breakdowns, no psychiatry. The cameras didn't show anyone except him. He called the police himself. He said, "I did it. I don't understand why." When I saw him in the office, he was sitting calmly, as if nothing had happened. "Why did you kill her?" I asked. He looked at the ceiling. "She was in the way, but not for me. For him." "Who?" "I don't know. It's just—" After the seventh session, he said that she was harmful, that she was slowing down my growth, and if I wanted to become myself— He fell silent. Then he looked at the mirror, right at me. He said that I should get rid of her. I thought he was talking about the voices in his head. Schizophrenia, an acute disorder, but according to the documents, the guy was completely mentally healthy. The only thing was that 6 months ago, he started seeing a psychiatrist. The doctor's name was S.L. Golovin. I started checking. It would have been a common thing. But 3 days later, there was a second murder. And again, a different person. A different part of the city. The same pattern, a sharp change in behavior, calmness, confession, and Golovin's name on the medical record. Then I realized this was not an accident. This was a series. Only the killer is not the one who held the knife. I decided to visit this psychiatrist in person. According to the documents, he is a licensed doctor, PhD, private practice, clean reputation. He worked in the private clinic Vector. But here's what's strange. Not a single photo in open sources. No interviews, no social networks, only articles in medical journals, and those without personal commentary. I came to Vector disguised as a patient. The reception is glossy, the walls are white, cameras are everywhere. "Hello, I need to see Dr. Golovin," I say. "We don't have such a specialist," the girl answers. "Wait." I show the direction of one of the killers. "His name is here." She hesitated, glanced at the camera above the entrance for a second. "Previously worked there, but quit." "When?" "2 months ago." Coincidence? The murders began exactly then. I left a request in the Ministry of Internal Affairs database. Golovin was listed as alive, with no previous convictions. He was registered in the Moscow region, but at the address, an empty house and deregistered. The next morning, I called one of the clinic doctors for a third-degree interrogation, unofficially, in a cafe. "Tell me honestly, was Golovin strange?" "Talented, very, but he worked according to his own system. He didn't share his methods." "Did you notice that patients changed after him?" "Yes, but everyone thought it was for the better. They smiled, became bolder. One even dropped out of college and said, 'I finally understood what I wanted.'" This patient is the third killer. I started watching videos from the clinic. I got them through friends. Golovin had a rule: all sessions without recording, only sound. But even there, empty, more precisely erased. There are folders, inside, silence, and a strange fragment at the end of one file. "You are not afraid to be yourself. You are above the laws. You are stronger than morality. You just become free." I heard the coldness in his voice. He did not heal. He reprogrammed people. I started checking all of Golovin's patients. I asked for their details. Behavioral changes, dismissals, disappearances, criminal records. 12 people. Of them, 3 have already been killed, 2 are wanted, 4 quit their jobs, disappeared from the radar. 1 jumped off the roof. 2 normal, that's for now. I went to one of them, a girl named Elisaveta, 29 years old. quiet, worked as an administrator. Her face showed slight nervousness. I still go to him, she said, only now at different addresses. Where does he see patients? She shook her head. I have no right to talk, he asked. If I break it, he will come for me. It clicked in my mind. He still works, but unofficially. Underground. Under a different name? I checked all the new clinics in Moscow and the region where psychiatrists started working without a license. I found 3 of them. They all had a similar description. A man 40 plus, no photo, by appointment only. Results after the first sessions. I went to one and staged an arrest, but it wasn't him. A fake, a pseudo-doctor. But he gave up the address, the contact person who hired him. The address was a warehouse. Inside was a chair, a lamp, video cameras. Not a clinic, but something like a laboratory. In the box were audio cassettes, signed and dated. I took one. I wrote down the text. If you hear this, you are already in the system. You are not a patient. You are a carrier. Killing is not your choice. It is simply your function. Welcome to freedom. I started looking for those who had undergone therapy with Golovin, but did not become killers. There were 2 of them. One of them was Igor Maslov, 38 years old, a programmer. Now he lives in a hostel, fired, without a family, a broken man. At first, he did not want to talk. Then when I showed him a photo of one of the killers, Igor pulled an old flash drive out of his pocket with trembling hands. Here is a recording. I secretly turned on the recorder when I realized that something was wrong with the sessions. I turned it on. The sound was distorted, hissing, but the voice was clearly audible. You are depressed because you are weak, but there is a beast inside you. Give it a name. Accept it. It will set you free. Submit to it, and you will become whole. Igor looked at the floor. After the 4th session, I woke up at night with bloody hands. I punched the walls. I tried to strangle my neighbor. I ran away. He called me later. He tried to persuade me to come back. He said, "You are almost perfect." Why didn't you go to the police? Because they told me that I made it up myself. And then my brother disappeared, the one who recommended Golovin to me. No one saw him again. This man was half broken. He miraculously did not become another product of Golovin, but he had an audio recording, evidence. I took the flash drive and went to another witness. Her name was Maria Levitskaya, 47 years old, a former colleague of Golovin. She worked with him in the same clinic. I found her in a private sanatorium where she lived under a false name. Very thin, paranoid. Did you know what he was doing? At first, no. He seemed charismatic, very much so. People would glow after his sessions. But one day I overheard him telling someone on the phone, "This patient is unstable. We can direct him in the right direction." Direct? He didn't treat. He shaped people, turned them into instruments. I wrote a report. A week later, I was suspended. Then the threats began. They called me, wrote to me, followed me. Who? I don't know. The voice on the other end of the line said, "Forget Golovin's name. Forget what you saw." I found the protocol of her suspension. It was signed by a person who doesn't exist, a Hamisit. The tracks are being covered up by someone from above. But the 3rd witness became the main one. Mikhail Krotkov, a former military man. He underwent rehabilitation with Golovin after a severe head injury. Then he disappeared for 2 months. He showed up in the forest, wounded with partial amnesia. He told me something that turned everything upside down. I was riding on a train. There was a gun in my bag. The goal was to kill the judge. I didn't know the name, only a photo. But at the last moment, something inside me broke. I threw the gun away and ran away. Then someone started looking for me. I hid. Do you still have the photo? He took out a crumpled photo. It was of my boss, Lieutenant Colonel Romanov, the man I report to every day. Golovin didn't just break people's psyches. He turned them into sleeper agents, into a tool. And now one of them was right above me. I returned to the station, pretended that nothing had happened. Romanov was sitting at the table, leafing through the case file. I put a flash drive in front of him, The one with the recording of Gullivan's voice. What's this? A recording of one of the witnesses. I think you might be interested. He connected the flash drive, listened. Not a single movement. Only his fingers clenched when the phrase, "You are almost perfect," sounded on the recording. I looked at him. His eyes trembled slightly. Not fear. Something else. Recognition. "What do you say?" I asked. He was silent. Then he turned off the recording and slowly put the flash drive away in the drawer. "The internal department will deal with this, and you do other things. Gullivan's case is closed, not found." Not found. I'm almost at his door. I have 3 witnesses. 2 almost died. 1 lost his memory. I have audio evidence. "Why are you—" I said, "The case is closed." He stood up and went to the door. I saw he had a thin, barely noticeable scar behind his ear. Like other patients of Golovin, exactly the same. Dotted, crescent-shaped. My breath caught. I realized he had also undergone therapy with him. And perhaps he doesn't remember it, or pretends not to remember. I opened Romanov's personal file. Surprisingly, in 2016, he was on vacation. According to the documents, in a sanatorium near Kaluga, exactly where Mikhail Krutkov was later found. This is not a coincidence. This is the root. I realized that I was alone in this city. The police were infected. The investigators were figures. The system was infected. I collected all the materials, copies of the records, photographs, protocols. I locked myself in the apartment, taped over the laptop camera, turned off the phone. I had 3 options: run, keep quiet, or go all the way. I chose the third. I decided to set a trap. I contacted Igor Maslov and Maria Levitskaya, convinced them to agree to repeated therapy, supposedly voluntarily. We simulated that they had surrendered. Maria signed up for Golovin through his new shadow, a private online clinic called Therapeutic Evolution, registered in Estonia. It was a rapper. He worked there. He made an appointment in an old mansion outside the city. Entry, 1 at a time. No phones. I went first. The old house smelled of mold and blood. On the walls, paintings without faces. The stairs creaked. There was a closed door upstairs. It opened, and he came out. Golovin, the same as in the photo, only his eyes were different, too calm, as if he already knew what would happen next, as if he was not human. "Hello," he said. "You came to understand, but you are already part of the experiment. Do you think you are free?" He came closer. I took out the recorder. "You have a scar behind your ear. You were in my office too. 3 years ago. An accident. Memory loss. Remember?" I froze. He pulled out a folder. There were photos in it. Mine. A hospital room. Electrodes. I scream. "You are one of the best. You are the one who was supposed to find me. You are my final act." I didn't know if it was true, or a suggestion, but at that second I felt reality waver, as if I had already heard these words, as if this wasn't an interrogation, but a replay. I pressed the button on the recorder, but it didn't work. Only background noise and a whisper. "You've always been my voice." I took a step back. He didn't stop me. "Go. Tell the world, but no one will believe you, because you're the killer." I ran out of the mansion, barely holding on to consciousness. Everything seemed different from how it should be. He told me that no one would believe that I was the killer, but what was even more terrifying was that I could no longer say for sure who I really was. When I returned home, I immediately began checking the recordings and traces. All the audio files I had collected did not work. All the documents that confirmed Golovin's identity were gone. What I saw seemed like fragments of a dream, not real. But I knew that if I did not stop, I would not be able to prove the truth to anyone. Igor called. He was in a panic. Minus I remember. I feel him in my head again. I hear his voice. He said that I am in control, that I am part of the game, that I have to do this. Listen, he is already inside me. I hung up, but before I could take a step, there was a knock on the door. When I opened it, I saw no one. Just a piece of paper folded in half. "He knows you are part of it. It won't end until you are free. It's time." I grabbed the phone and called Maria Levitskaya. She was home. He is alive, Golovin. He continues to control. We are all his toys. I started collecting evidence, photographing everything I could find, but the traces disappeared. As soon as I approached them, everything was erased, and the voice in my head repeated, "You have already done everything. You have already chosen." I was driving to the station to pick up the archives. Everything needed to be brought to light. But on the way, a man in a black cloak approached me. It was Romanov. "Do you think you will save the world?" he said, his face empty, like a puppet. "Do you think you are not part of the system? You are its detail. You are a link. You did what we wanted from you." I felt my consciousness begin to fade. He took my phone and whispered something that seemed to shock me. I couldn't remember how I ended up in my apartment, but in that moment, I realized that I had become part of this madness. All the evidence was gone, all the traces dissolved. I was back in the circle. Ultimately, no one believed my story. All the evidence was destroyed. All the work was lost. But as I stood at the window and looked out over the city, I knew it was watching me. Everything I had done was another step along the path. I had become part of this labyrinth. Golovin wasn't alone. He was just the beginning. Now his program is working, and it's working for all of us. I could tell the world what happened, but I understand. He's watching everyone. I know it. We are all his puppets, and if I keep talking, he'll enter my thoughts again. But now I wait. I know that one day he will come back, and then I will become his next experiment. I continued to struggle with the feeling that I was trapped and there was no way out. Every day was like a new test. You can't trust anyone. You can't trust yourself. But one day when I had almost lost hope, what I had been waiting for from the very beginning happened. Everything I had experienced at some point became too obvious, too impossible to remain in the shadows. Everything was revealed. It all started with Maria Levitskaya. She managed to come to an agreement with one of her old acquaintances from the medical field, a specialist in neurobiology. He told her about the mysterious technology that Golovin had been working with in recent years. He had placed chips in the heads of his patients. These chips did more than just record information about brainwaves. They could directly affect the nervous system, control emotions, and even suppress memory. Finding herself in danger, Maria handed over all her materials to independent researchers. With the help of experts, they proved that the chips that Golovin had placed in his patients were used to create living puppets. These devices allowed him to manipulate people's psyche, including their behavior and perception of reality. He controlled them, not giving them the opportunity to resist, to kill, to commit crimes. When this information got into the media, the police began an investigation. Soon, traces of chips were found in the heads of several of his patients, including those who became murderers. Shocking evidence proved that Golovin used them not only for treatment, but also to create puppets that carried out his will. The investigation shook the country. Searches were conducted in the clinics where he worked. Hidden experiments were found in old records, inscriptions on the walls of his offices indicating manipulation of consciousness. He watched each of his patients, controlled their actions, turning them into murderers, criminals, into victims who did not even realize that they were just tools in the hands of a psychiatrist. Golovin was arrested. He was brought to trial as the prime suspect in a series of murders and crimes that he had orchestrated and controlled. His chips and the records left over the years of his work were his death sentence. But despite this, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had become part of something bigger. We were all part of his experiment. We weren't just victims of his manipulations. We were links in his chain. And despite the fact that he had been exposed, his system remained alive. Golovin was found guilty of hundreds of crimes, including murder, and sent to a mental institution where he was placed under strict control. But for me, this was not the end. It was the beginning of a new reality in which we could all be the next puppets. I often wonder what would have happened if I hadn't stopped when I had the evidence. I could have become his last tool. But now that the police have uncovered his secrets, I know for sure that there are those in the world who see us as we are and manipulate us until we notice. Perhaps this is just the beginning. And who knows how many more Golovins are lurking in the shadows, manipulating our actions, not giving us a chance for freedom